The Gordie Howe International Bridge rises above the Detroit River, a gleaming promise of connection, its steel and concrete structure physically uniting the United States and Canada. This is more than just a feat of engineering. It's a vision made real, stretching across the water as a testament to what two nations can achieve together. More than infrastructure, the bridge stands as a powerful symbol of cross-border friendship and cooperation. Named for Gordie Howe, a hockey legend cherished in both Detroit and Windsor, it embodies the shared history, culture, and aspirations of these neighboring cities. The bridge is a tribute to the spirit of teamwork, much like the game Howe played so passionately. For decades, the Detroit River has served as a vital channel of partnership, carrying goods, people, and ideas between the two countries. The new bridge was envisioned to secure and strengthen that future, making trade smoother, travel easier, and relationships deeper. It was meant to be a new chapter in a long story of collaboration. But on September 22, 2025, a shadow falls over this hopeful project. The United States imposes tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum, materials essential to the bridge's construction. Suddenly, the very project designed to unite is threatened by the forces of division and economic rivalry. What began as a story of collaboration and mutual benefit is now transformed into a drama of economic conflict and uncertainty. Workers on both sides of the border feel the tension, their livelihoods and dreams hanging in the balance. The bridge, designed to facilitate billions in annual trade, now finds itself at the very center of a heated trade dispute. Instead of bringing nations closer, it risks becoming a symbol of the forces pushing them apart. Every beam, every cable, every bolt is now freighted with political meaning. The materials that hold the bridge together are the same ones pulling at the fabric of international relations. The question looms large: can the US-Canada alliance withstand this strain? Will the bridge fulfill its promise as a link of hope, or will it become a casualty of economic discord? The fate of the Gordie Howe International Bridge has become a barometer for North American relations. Stormy, unpredictable, and fraught with uncertainty, its progress is watched closely by leaders, workers, and citizens on both sides. As crews labor day and night, they're not just building a bridge of steel and stone, they're building a legacy. Each weld and rivet is a statement of hope, a belief that partnership can prevail even in turbulent times. The outcome of this project will decide more than just the fate of a bridge. It will determine whether the legacy left behind is one of enduring partnership and shared prosperity, or a costly conflict that divides neighbors for years to come. The conflict erupted almost overnight as Washington imposed sudden and sweeping tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum, citing national security concerns. The move sent shockwaves through both industries and governments, catching many by surprise and igniting a firestorm of debate about the true motives behind the decision. In Ottawa, the reaction was swift and deeply emotional. Canadian leaders saw this not as a measure of protection, but as a profound betrayal by their closest ally. The sense of partnership that had defined decades of cooperation was suddenly in question. Determined to defend its industries and workers, Canada responded with dollar-for-dollar countermeasures. These targeted not only U.S. steel and aluminum, but also a carefully chosen list of politically sensitive goods, from whiskey to ketchup, designed to send a clear message to Washington. The message was unmistakable. If trade was to be weaponized, Canada would not stand idly by. Protesters took to the streets, business leaders voiced their concerns, and the Canadian government made it clear that retaliation was not just an option, but a necessity. The world's longest undefended border, once a symbol of peace and friendship, was now transformed into a front line in a rapidly escalating trade war. Communities that straddled the border felt the tension firsthand. Diplomatic channels buzzed with activity as officials from both countries traded sharp words and accusations. The dispute quickly became about more than just metal. It was now a battle over principles, sovereignty, and the future of North American trade. Canada argued forcefully that the United States was violating the spirit and the letter of trade agreements like the USMCA, agreements painstakingly negotiated to ensure fairness and stability. The very framework designed to prevent such conflicts was now under siege, its credibility and effectiveness called into question as both sides dug in. The phrase "trade war" was no longer just a headline, it now described the reality facing two of the world's most integrated economies, whose supply chains and livelihoods were deeply intertwined. This new steel curtain wasn't ideological, like those of the past, but economic. threatening to unravel decades of cross-border commerce, investment, and trust built painstakingly over generations. Trust, once the bedrock of the Canada-US relationship, was visibly eroding. Long-standing partnerships between businesses and communities on both sides of the border began to fray. Uncertainty and anxiety spread rapidly, affecting workers, families, and industries in both countries. Boardrooms and kitchen tables alike were filled with questions about what the future would hold. The stakes had never been higher. With so much on the line, every move in this high-stakes game would shape the fate of millions on both sides of the border. The Detroit-Windsor corridor is North America's most vital economic artery, a bustling passage that connects two nations and fuels the prosperity of an entire continent. Stretching across the Detroit River, this corridor is more than just a border crossing. It's a living, breathing link that keeps the economies of the United States and Canada in constant motion. Every year, 1/4 of all US-Canada trade, an astonishing $400 billion, flows through this narrow gateway. That's more than the total trade between many countries, highlighting just how crucial this corridor is to both nations' economic health. Over 10,000 trucks rumble across the bridge daily, carrying everything from fresh produce and grains to high-tech electronics and auto parts. This relentless movement ensures store shelves are stocked, factories are supplied, and businesses on both sides of the border can thrive. The auto industry in particular depends on this corridor. Its supply chain is a complex web that crisscrosses the border multiple times, relying on just-in-time delivery to keep assembly lines running smoothly and efficiently. Any disruption, whether it's a delay at customs, increased costs, or the imposition of tariffs, can bring production to a standstill. When trucks are held up, assembly lines grind to a halt, costing companies millions of dollars and threatening jobs. In many ways, the corridor itself is the assembly line, seamlessly connecting suppliers, manufacturers, and consumers across borders. But it's not just autos. Agriculture, manufacturing, and countless other industries depend on this steady flow of goods. From wheat fields in Ontario to factories in Michigan, livelihoods are tied to the uninterrupted movement across this bridge. The economies of Detroit and Windsor are so deeply intertwined that a slowdown in one city is immediately felt in the other. Jobs, investments, and even local communities are linked by this shared economic fate. Shared prosperity means shared vulnerability. When one side faces challenges, both feel the impact, underscoring the importance of cooperation and resilience. To relieve the strain and secure the future, the Gordie Howe International Bridge was conceived. This new crossing is designed to handle growing trade, reduce congestion, and provide a reliable alternative for decades to come. The aging Ambassador Bridge, with its visible wear and frequent traffic jams, has become a single point of failure. Any issue here threatens the entire economic lifeline. That's why a new, publicly owned bridge isn't just a luxury, it's an absolute necessity. It's an investment in the stability and growth of both nations. Yet, even as the new bridge rises, threats like tariffs and border disputes loom, threatening to constrict this vital lifeline just as it's being strengthened. The future of North American trade depends on keeping this corridor open, efficient, and resilient. U.S. tariffs on steel and aluminum hit the Gordie Howe Bridge project hard. Steel is its backbone, thousands of tons needed for towers, decks, and cables. Suddenly, costs soared by 25%, blowing up the carefully planned budget. The Windsor-Detroit Bridge Authority faced a dilemma: absorb costs, seek exemptions, or risk delays and overruns. Canadian suppliers, once central, were thrown into uncertainty. Jobs on both sides, Ontario steelworkers, Michigan fabricators, were at risk. The project, meant to create opportunity, now pitted worker against worker. Managers navigated a maze of tariffs and red tape, even for a binational project. The bridge, a symbol of connection, was now hostage to political conflict. Every decision was fraught with risk. The project's future and its promise hung in the balance. The stakes were no longer just financial, but symbolic. From Detroit boardrooms to Windsor Union halls, the tariffs sparked alarm. Auto industry leaders warned tariffs act as a tax on consumers, raising prices and hurting competitiveness. Trade experts called the U.S. move a direct assault on the rules-based order. Using national security against Canada, they argued, set a dangerous precedent. U.S. and Canadian experts agreed tariffs hurt manufacturers on both sides. Workers and families felt the brunt, jobs threatened, livelihoods at risk. Union leaders in Michigan and Ontario feared layoffs and lost exports. Local officials, once bridge champions, now lobbied desperately for resolution. The consensus tariffs are a lose-lose, damaging jobs and partnership. The region's economic engine was sputtering. As the crisis deepened, diplomacy took center stage. Canadian officials demanded the tariffs be lifted unconditionally, backed by rare political unity. The US insisted on quotas or limits, citing national security. Talks stalled. One side wanted full repeal, the other a managed solution. The outcome would define US-Canada relations for years. Success would restore trust and let the bridge proceed as a symbol of cooperation. Failure risked a prolonged trade war, more retaliation and lasting damage. The bridge's fate and the alliance hung on every negotiation. The tariffs' impact rippled through the North American economy. A small Ohio machine shop, reliant on Canadian aluminum, faced higher costs and tough choices. Price hikes cascaded up the supply chain. Ontario manufacturers, Michigan assembly plants, and back again. Retaliatory tariffs added more layers of cost and complexity. The just-in-time system was thrown into chaos. Ultimately, consumers paid more, cars cost hundreds more, sales dropped, jobs suffered. The policy meant to protect ended up hurting everyone. The cycle of rising costs and uncertainty touched every link in the chain. The dispute exposed the deep interdependence of the US and Canadian economies. In Michigan, 260,000 jobs depend on Canadian trade. In Ontario, prosperity hinges on US markets. The Windsor region is tied to Detroit's fortunes. Tariffs threaten its very livelihood. A trade war is mutual self-harm. Tariffs hurt both buyers and sellers, workers and consumers. There are no winners, only shared pain. The Gordie Howe Bridge was meant to embody this shared destiny. It's a joint investment in a common future. Now economic walls rise as a physical bridge is built. The contradiction is stark: partnership in concrete, conflict in policy. Millions' well-being is at stake. The bridge's promise is under threat. As the Gordie Howe Bridge rises, it stands at a crossroads for US-Canada relations. One path leads to renewed cooperation and prosperity, the other to lasting conflict and distrust. If the dispute is resolved, the bridge will symbolize unity. If not, it becomes a monument to division. This is more than a bridge. It's a test of the principles that have guided both nations for generations. The outcome will echo far beyond Detroit and Windsor. The final shape of the bridge, and the relationship, remains uncertain. The choice between partnership and rivalry is ours to make.